Raiders Nation update. The storm is coming before the season even kicks off all right. Raider Nation, buckle up, because it genuinely feels like we are standing right at the edge of one of those rare, defining moments. You know the kind. The kind where the next few weeks don't just matter. They quietly shape the entire soul of this franchise for years to come. And the wild part? Most people aren't even paying attention yet. While everybody and their grandmother is busy debating what happens once the regular season gets rolling, there is a whole lot of noise happening behind closed doors right now. Stuff that could completely flip what this roster looks like by the time Week 1 rolls around. We're talking serious movement. We're talking names, decisions, and opportunities that don't make the big headlines yet, but absolutely will. Today, we've got two major Raider stories sitting on the table, and trust me, both of them are worth your full attention. The first one involves some pretty recognizable names already suiting up in silver and black, players whose futures are genuinely up in the air, and whose situations could ripple across this entire roster in ways a lot of fans haven't fully thought through yet. The second story is about a guy that almost nobody outside of the most hardcore film room-obsessed football heads is even mentioning right now. But this dude, he might quietly be carving out a real shot for himself inside this organization. And honestly, that story might end up being the more exciting one. When you put these two things together, side by side, they paint a pretty clear picture of where this team is heading under the new regime. There is competition everywhere you look. Roster battles are heating up beneath the surface. Some players are clawing to prove they deserve to be here. Others, and this is the hard truth, might genuinely be running out of runway. So stay with me, because both of these stories carry bigger implications for the Las Vegas Raiders than most people are giving them credit for right now. And hey, before we dive all the way in, if you are a real one, a genuine member of Raider Nation, do me a quick favor and smash that like button. Hit subscribe while you're at it. My name is Victor, and this is Raiders Nation Update. We are still a brand new channel, just getting started, pushing hard toward our first 4,000 subscribers. And I would absolutely love to have you riding with us from day one of this journey. If you bleed silver and black, if you're proud to call yourself part of Raider Nation, then this is your community. Subscribe, drop a comment, say hello. Let's build something special together. All right, let's get into it. Story 1. The trade block is real, and these names are on it. The first story today is one that could very well become the loudest talking point of the entire training camp. Because even though the Raiders roster is slowly starting to take shape under the new staff, there are still several players sitting in that uncomfortable middle ground. Guys who could realistically find themselves on the trade block before the regular season ever gets. Here, the name generating the most chatter lately? Jackson Powers Johnson. Now look, personally, I'm not completely sold on the idea that the Raiders are actually ready to cut ties with him. Not yet. Yes, his 2025 season was a letdown. No point in dancing around that. Things went sideways, expectations were nowhere near met, and for a player the Raiders invested a second-round pick on in the 2024 draft, that stings. Fans noticed. The organization noticed. Everybody noticed. But here's the thing, and this is important. The situation today is genuinely different from what it was. There's a new coaching staff in place, fresh eyes, a completely new evaluation process. And if we're being fair, truly fair, JPJ has already flashed the kind of ability that made the Raiders fall in love with him in the first place. The talent is real. The physical tools are absolutely there. The big question hanging over everything is whether this new coaching staff can finally unlock the consistency that has been maddeningly absent. My honest take. The Raiders owe it to themselves to find out before pulling any kind of trigger on a move. If training camp starts and JPJ can't find a way into a starting role, then those trade conversations start feeling a lot more real. But right now, I genuinely believe the new staff wants to see exactly what they have in him before going down that road. This is a wait-and-see situation, and camp will tell us everything. No, another interesting name on everybody's radar is tight end Michael Mayer, and this one is a bit more complicated. Honestly, Mayer is heading into the final year of his contract after being taken in the second round of the 2023 draft. A pick the Raiders actually traded up to make, which tells you just how much this organization believed in him coming out of Notre Dame. When he was drafted, people were genuinely talking about him as a foundational piece of this offense for the long haul. A cornerstone, a guy you build around. That simply hasn't happened. Not yet, anyway. Have we seen flashes from Mayer? Absolutely. There have been moments where you can clearly see the player everyone thought he would become. But has there been enough consistency to justify those sky-high expectations? Probably not, if we're being straight with each other. Here's the silver lining, though. Mayer still has a potentially valuable role in this offense, especially when you throw Brock Bowers into the equation. And look, we all know what Brock Bowers is at this point. The man is already one of the most important players on this entire roster, full stop. Every single offseason, we hear the same tantalizing conversation. What if the Raiders finally commit to a two-tight end system with both Bowers and Mayer? It's a mouth-watering idea. A lot of us have been dreaming about it becoming reality for a while now. Maybe, just maybe, this is finally the year it actually happens. That's why, at the end of the day, I still think Mayer stays in Las Vegas, but if another team comes knocking with a genuinely attractive offer, a trade can't be completely ruled out. Not with a contract year looming and pressure building. Then we get to what might actually be the most realistic trade candidate on this entire list, and that's quarterback Aiden O'Connell. This one feels different from the others, noticeably different. Remember, there were already whispers floating around during the NFL draft that O'Connell could be moved. Nothing materialized. For now, he's heading into training camp as a Raider. But the legitimate questions surrounding his long-term fit in Clint Kubiak's offensive system are not going away. And let's be clear, this isn't necessarily a knock on O'Connell's ability as a football player. This isn't about whether the guy can play. It comes down to one specific thing. Does his skill set match what Kubiak wants this offense to look and feel like going forward? That's the real question. O'Connell is also entering the final year of his rookie deal after being selected in the 4th round of the 2023 draft, which adds yet another layer of urgency to the whole situation. If the Raiders decide, after a serious, honest look, that he's not part of the future vision, moving him before final roster cuts makes a ton of sense for everybody involved. Out of everyone we've talked about today, Aiden O'Connell is the player I'd keep the closest eye on over the coming months. This situation could move fast. And then there's wide receiver Dante Thornton. And wow, what a difference a single year can make. Last offseason, there was genuine excitement surrounding Thornton. Real buzz. The Raiders drafted him in the 4th round, and people were talking about his upside, his athletic traits, his ceiling. It felt like one of those picks with real potential energy behind it. Then the actual game started, and it became pretty clear, pretty quickly, that he wasn't ready to contribute at an NFL level on a consistent basis. Now the challenge gets even steeper. The Raiders' receiver room has gotten more crowded. New competition has arrived, and one of the players generating the most interesting buzz right now is 6th round, rookie Malik Benson, which is exactly the kind of attention Thornton desperately needed to be generating for himself heading into camp. There are also real questions about how naturally Thornton fits into what Kubiak wants to do offensively. If he stumbles early in training camp and starts falling behind in the competition battle, the Raiders could very realistically decide that grabbing even a late-round draft pick in return is better than eventually losing him for nothing. This is a prove-it moment, and the clock is ticking. When you step back and look at the full picture, one thing jumps out immediately. This roster is far from finalized. Jackson Powers-Johnson, Michael Mayer, Aiden O'Connell, and Dante Thornton all walk into training camp with something real to prove. Some are fighting for bigger roles. Some are fighting for their futures in silver and black. And some might be fighting just to stay with this organization at all. That's the nature of the NFL. Nobody is safe. Nobody should feel comfortable. And honestly, that's exactly how it should be. Quick time out. If you're enjoying this breakdown so far, please take 2 seconds and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel grow and reach more people in Raider Nation. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We're grinding toward 4,000 subscribers, and every single one of you matters. Join the family, drop a comment below, and let us know you're here. Story 2. The underdog. Nobody is talking about, but should be now. Let's shift gears to the second story, because this one might actually end up being the most underrated camp battle of the entire summer. And I mean that sincerely. Undrafted free agent Chase Roberts is quietly, methodically becoming a player worth paying real attention to. Before anyone rolls their eyes at yet another undrafted receiver story, hear me out, because this one has some genuinely interesting layers to it. First, let's set the scene. The Raiders' wide receiver group is still, honestly, one of the weakest position groups on the entire roster. That's just reality, and pretending otherwise doesn't help anybody. But here's the flip side of that uncomfortable truth. Opportunities are open. Real ones. Roberts comes in at 6'3" and 209 pounds, and that size immediately gives him something this receiver room is genuinely lacking. The Raiders have been searching, hunting really, for a true X-receiver profile. A big, physical guy who can win on the outside. And physically, Roberts checks a surprising number of those boxes. What he did at BYU last season is also worth taking seriously. He hauled in 54 catches for 822 yards and 6 touchdowns. According to Pro Football Focus, he earned a 76.9 receiving grade, which ranked 5th among all Big 12 wide receivers. He also averaged 2.35 yards per route run, landing him 11th in the entire conference. Those aren't throwaway numbers. That's legitimate. Production against legitimate competition. But the raw statistics are honestly just the tip of the iceberg with this guy. When analysts broke down his film, really dug into it, several strengths kept popping up again and again. The first thing that leaps off the screen is his football intelligence. Roberts has a genuine feel for finding soft spots in zone coverage. He understands defensive spacing in a way that a lot of young receivers just don't. He knows how to slow down, settle into open windows, and make himself available to his quarterback at exactly the right moment. That sounds simple when you say it out loud, but trust me, it is a skill that a ton of NFL receivers, including drafted ones, never fully master. His body control is another real weapon. There were multiple plays on film where the quarterback delivered a late or slightly off-target ball near the sideline, and Roberts somehow still managed to track it down, stay aware of the boundary, and complete the catch. For a player who spent his college career dealing with inconsistent quarterback play at BYU, developing that kind of adjustment ability wasn't optional. It was survival. And he did it. His route running also deserves a genuine shout-out. Roberts is subtle with it, but that's part of what makes it effective. On slant routes, he used smart releases to widen throwing windows for his quarterback. Against zone coverage, he had the discipline to pump the brakes in open areas instead of running himself directly into defenders. On crossing routes, he adjusted his angles intelligently to create extra separation. None of this is flashy. None of it goes viral, but every single bit of it is professional. These are the kinds of technical details that coaches fall in love with. And when you're an undrafted free agent trying to fight your way onto a 53-man roster, those details are the difference between a roster spot and a flight home. 1. thing that really stood out during the film breakdown is how naturally Roberts' strengths seem to align with Clint Kubiak's offensive system. Kubiak's scheme comes from the Shanahan-tree, and it leans heavily on route adjustments, high football IQ, and receivers who can read and react to coverage in real time. Roberts showed clear examples of doing exactly that during his college tape. He also flashed some surprisingly effective run-after-catch ability. More on that in a second. Now, here's where we have to be honest about the concerns, because they're real. Roberts ran a 4.64 in the 40-yard dash. That's not fast. Let's just call it what it is. Speed is a genuine red flag in his profile, and you can see it show up on deeper routes where he occasionally struggles to create the kind of separation you need at the NFL level.